What if the answers to living a sharper, wiser, and more peaceful life weren't new, but ancient? Thousands of years ago, in the middle of chaos, uncertainty, and the rise and fall of empires, a group of thinkers uncovered a quiet power, the ability to master one's own mind. These were the Stoics, philosophers like Marcus Aurelius Seneca and Epictetus, who didn't just study life from books, but lived on the battlefield in exile and behind palace walls. They taught that while we can't control the world, we can control how we think, how we act, and how we show up each day, and that, they believed, is where our greatest power lives. In this video, you're going to discover 15 timeless Stoic lessons, clear, powerful principles that will help you think more clearly, lead with reason, respond with strength, and live with greater purpose. These aren't just quotes to admire, they're mental frameworks to live by. If you ever felt overwhelmed, reactive, lost in the noise of modern life, this is your invitation to return to calm, to clarity, to what truly matters. Let's begin. 1. You control your mind, not the world. One of the most profound Stoic realizations is that while we may not have power over the external world, we possess complete authority over our internal world, our thoughts, perceptions, and responses. Life will test you. It will deliver hardships, losses, failures, and moments that feel completely out of your control. But the Stoic does not seek to bend reality to their will. Instead, they discipline their mind to remain unshaken amidst the chaos. Like the eye of a hurricane, a calm mind can exist even when the world around you is turbulent. This isn't about passive acceptance. It's about active ownership. You don't waste energy fighting what you can't change. Instead, you train your thoughts like a disciplined soldier. You choose not to be a victim of circumstance, but a master of response. You learn to say, this is outside of my control, but my judgment, my reaction, my values, those are mine, and they are untouchable. The Stoics didn't wish for comfort. They wished for strength. They didn't hope the world would be gentle. They trained so their minds could be unbreakable. That mindset creates clarity, courage, and a deep resilience. Because when you realize that peace doesn't come from a perfect world, but from disciplined thinking, you stop chasing control and you start living with power. 2. Focus on what you can control. So much of our daily stress, anxiety, and frustration comes from trying to influence things that are completely beyond our grasp. The Stoics understood this deeply. They taught that true peace doesn't come from mastering the external world, but from mastering your response to it. You can't control the weather. You can't control what other people think, say, or do. You can't control outcomes, luck, or timing. But what you can control is the way you show up. You can control your thoughts, your attitude, your choices, your character. And that's more than enough. When you stop scattering your energy on things you can't change, something powerful happens. You get that energy back. You begin to focus inward on cultivating discipline, refining your habits, and aligning your actions with your values. You begin to realize that your peace doesn't depend on everything going your way, but on how you respond when it doesn't. And that shift, that's real power, because the world will always be unpredictable. But your mindset, when trained, can become immovable. The Stoic doesn't ignore problems. They simply don't waste energy on what lies outside their circle of influence. Their focus becomes laser sharp. They ask, what is within my control in this moment? And then they act on it, calmly, wisely, and with intention. That level of clarity becomes a kind of superpower. Because while most people are overwhelmed by circumstances, the Stoic remains anchored, firm in the only place that control truly exists, within. 3. Emotions are feedback, not facts. Emotions are not your enemy. Fear, anger, jealousy, sadness, these are not flaws in your system. They are messengers. They're signals from within, alerting you to what matters, what hurts, and where your attention is needed. But too often we let emotions take the wheel. We let a moment of anger destroy a relationship, or a wave of fear stop us from trying. The Stoics teach us a different path. To observe our emotions, not obey them. To listen to their message without becoming their servant. You are not your rage. You are not your anxiety. You are not your envy. You are the awareness behind those feelings. The still, centered presence that can witness them without being consumed. When you learn to pause, breathe, and reflect instead of react, you begin to reclaim your power. That gap between stimulus and response, that moment of awareness, is where freedom lives. It's in that space that you choose reason over reaction, clarity over chaos. Think of emotions as weather passing through the sky of your mind. Storms may come, but you are not the storm, you are the sky. The Stoic recognizes the emotion, asks what it's pointing to, and then responds with wisdom, not impulse. This doesn't mean you suppress your feelings. It means you understand them. You allow them to inform you, not control you. And in that mastery, you gain a kind of inner peace most people never touch. Because the one who can feel deeply without being ruled by feeling, that person is truly free. 4. Discipline is freedom. At first glance, discipline might look like restriction, schedules, rules, self-denial. But in truth, discipline is one of the most liberating forces you can bring into your life. It's not about limiting your life. It's about claiming control over it. The Stoics believe that true freedom isn't doing whatever you want whenever you want. That's impulse, not independence. Real freedom is having the strength to choose what is right over what is easy. It's the ability to govern yourself rather than be ruled by cravings, distractions, or fleeting emotions. Discipline is a structure that allows your higher self to thrive. It's the daily commitment to your values, even when motivation fades. It's choosing to do the work even when no one is watching. And over time, that consistency builds strength, mental, emotional, and physical. You become reliable to yourself. You build trust in your own character. And from that trust grows confidence. Real, earned confidence, not the kind that crumbles when life gets hard. Think of it this way. The undisciplined person is a slave to temptation, to mood swings, to external pressure. But the disciplined person? They are free. Free to pursue their goals without being derailed by excuses. Free to live with intention. Free to rise above chaos. When your habits align with your values, when your actions reflect your purpose, you are no longer drifting. You are directing. And that kind of control over yourself is rare. It's powerful. It's stoic. So the next time you resist that early morning alarm, the workout, the hard conversation, the focused work, remember this: discipline isn't a punishment. It's a path to power, a quiet strength, a form of freedom only the few ever choose, but one that will carry you further than talent or luck ever could. 5. Memento mori. Remember you will die. It might sound morbid at first. Remember you will die. But this Stoic principle is not about fear. It's about clarity. It's about urgency. It's about stripping away the illusion that we have forever. When you carry the awareness of death, not in a panicked, obsessive way, but as a quiet companion, you begin to live differently. You stop wasting time on petty arguments, hollow distractions, or chasing approval. You stop putting off what matters. Memento mori is not about sadness. It's about focus. It's about living every moment with intention, knowing that this day, this hour, will never come again. The Stoics didn't use the thought of death to scare themselves into submission. They used it to sharpen their values, to ask themselves, if I died tomorrow, would I be proud of how I lived today? That question cuts through the noise. It brings you back to what's essential. It humbles the ego and silences the excuses. Suddenly, you realize there's no room for bitterness, no time to delay healing, no sense in waiting to love more deeply, speak more honestly, or live more freely. Death is not the end of meaning. It's what gives life its meaning. It's what makes this all precious. The limited nature of our time gives it weight, gives it urgency, gives it value. When you embrace that truth, you stop drifting and you start living. So remember this: one day you will take your last breath. Don't let it come while your best life still sits on the shelf. Live now. Choose now. Be present now. Memento mori is not about dying. It's a call to truly begin living. 6. You suffer more in imagination than in reality. Your mind is a powerful storyteller. And too often, it tells stories laced with fear, worst-case scenarios, and imagined pain. You rehearse failures that haven't happened. You fear conversations that might never come. You carry anxiety for tomorrows that may never arrive. The Stoics taught that much of our suffering doesn't come from life itself, but from our anticipation of life. It's not the challenge that breaks us, but our exaggerated thoughts about the challenge. Fear multiplies in the shadows of imagination. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Today I escape anxiety," or no, I discarded it because it was within me and my own perceptions, not outside. That is the essence of Stoic wisdom, realizing that your pain is often not caused by reality itself, but by the distorted lens through which you're viewing it. You project disasters before they happen. You rehearse defeat before you've even begun. But once the moment actually arrives, once you're in it, you often find that you can handle far more than you gave yourself credit for. So what's the remedy? Come back to what's real. Anchor yourself in the present. Observe your thoughts like clouds passing through the sky. Acknowledge them, but don't attach to them. Ask yourself, is this real or is this just a thought? Let that question be a compass. Because when you separate reality from imagination, you take back your peace. You stop living under a storm that only exists in your head. And in doing so, you gain power, not just over your fears, but over your life. 7. Discomfort is a path to strength in a world addicted to comfort. The Stoics chose something different. They chose growth. And they understood a timeless truth. Strength is not built in ease, but in resistance. Whether it's a discomfort waking early, facing a difficult truth, sitting with grief, or taking the harder but more honest path. These are the moments that shape you. Discomfort is not the enemy. It is a teacher. And the lessons it offers are the ones you can't learn when everything feels safe and easy. Seneca once said, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body." The Stoics didn't avoid hardship. They embraced it because they knew it forged resilience. Just like muscles grow by being torn and rebuilt, your character is strengthened through challenge. Every time you choose discomfort over stagnation, discipline over indulgence, or courage over fear, you add weight to your inner armor. You become more grounded, more capable, more free. But there's a deeper layer to this lesson. When you stop running from discomfort, you stop being controlled by it. You no longer fear failure, rejection, pain, or uncertainty because you've trained yourself to walk through it. You become the kind of person who can face life head-on, not because it's easy, but because you've accepted that ease was never the goal. Growth was. So don't resent the hard things. Don't avoid the tension. Lean into it. Learn from it. Let discomfort be the sharpening stone that reveals your sharpest self. 8. What you own can end up owning you. We live in a world that constantly whispers, more will make you happy. More status. More luxury. More possessions. But the Stoics saw through that illusion. They warned that the pursuit of excess often becomes a prison, one where the things you acquire begin to acquire you. The house needs maintenance. The car needs upgrades. The image you built demands upkeep. And slowly, your energy, peace, and time become consumed not by freedom, but by fear of losing what you've gathered. Epictetus said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." The Stoic path isn't anti-success, it's pro-freedom. True wealth isn't measured by the size of your paycheck or the brand on your clothes. It's measured by how little you need to be at peace. When you are unattached to outcomes, when you don't depend on stuff for your self-worth, you become powerful. Because nothing can be taken from you that truly matters. This lesson isn't about living in poverty. It's about living with clarity. You still own things, but they don't own you. You can enjoy the world without becoming entangled in it. You can walk away when something costs your peace. And in that detachment, you gain something far more valuable than any possession. Your autonomy. The ability to be grounded, content, and unshaken, whether you have a lot or a little. Because in the end, the richest person isn't the one who has the most. It's the one who needs the least. 9. Silence is strength. In a noisy world full of opinions, arguments, and constant chatter, silence has become a lost art. But the Stoics knew its power. They understood that true strength doesn't always announce itself. It's often quiet, calm, and intentional. While others rush to speak, to prove, to react, the Stoic chooses restraint. They listen more than they talk. They observe before they respond. And in that silence, they gather clarity, control, and wisdom. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The more we value things outside our control, the less control we have." And one of the first places this becomes visible is in how we speak. When you impulsively react, defending your ego, proving your point, feeding conflict, you give your power away. But when you remain silent, especially when provoked, you remain in command of yourself. You don't need to win every argument. You don't need to respond to every insult. The need to always speak is often a sign of inner insecurity. Silence, when chosen with purpose, reveals self-mastery. Silence also creates space for thought, for insight, for peace. It's in the quiet moments that you can hear your own mind clearly. It's where wisdom grows. The Stoics trained themselves to be slow to speak, but quick to reflect. And that discipline gave them an edge, not just in conversation, but in life. So the next time you're tempted to react, to post, to prove, remember this. You don't always have to speak to show power. Sometimes, the quietest presence in a room holds the deepest strength. 10. Discomfort is a teacher. Most people run from discomfort. They numb it, avoid it, or complain about it. But the Stoics embraced it, not because they enjoyed pain, but because they understood its purpose. Discomfort, to them, wasn't an obstacle. It was a mentor. It revealed weakness, so it could be strengthened. It exposed illusion, so they could be dissolved. And it stripped away comfort, so truth could be seen. Seneca said, difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body. Growth never comes from ease. Muscles grow through resistance. Character forms through challenge. Resilience is built in moments where you want to quit, but choose to endure instead. The Stoics didn't seek suffering, but they didn't fear it either. They trained themselves to get comfortable being uncomfortable, knowing that every hardship carries a hidden gift. The opportunity to become better, wiser, stronger. When you stop avoiding discomfort, you start accessing your full potential. You begin to see cold mornings, tough workouts, hard conversation, and uncertain outcomes not as threats, but as invitations. Invitations to rise, to sharpen, to evolve. And the more often you say yes to those moments, the more you realize pain is temporary, but the strength it leaves behind is permanent. So don't curse the discomfort. Lean into it. Learn from it. Let it mold you, because every time you face what's hard instead of hiding from it, you're becoming someone harder to break and more capable of thriving, no matter what life throws your way. 11. You are not your reputation. In today's world, where likes, comments, and public opinion can shape someone's self-worth, it's easy to become trapped in the illusion that your value comes from how others see you. But the Stoics taught something radically different. They reminded us that reputation is not reality. Your true worth doesn't come from praise or recognition. It comes from integrity. How you live when no one is watching. Epictetus warned. If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Why? Because personal growth often requires doing things that won't always be understood by others. Sometimes you'll have to make choices that go against the crowd. You may be mocked, doubted, or misunderstood. But if you know your actions are rooted in virtue, discipline, and purpose, then you've already won. The opinions of others become background noise. Reputation is fragile. It can rise and fall with a rumor. But your character? That's yours to build. The Stoics focus on the inner self. Am I acting justly? Am I speaking truthfully? Am I doing the right thing, regardless of how it looks? When you anchor yourself to those principles, you stop chasing approval. You stop fearing judgment. And you begin to stand in a quiet kind of power, the kind that doesn't need to be seen to be real. So, let the world say what it will. Don't be moved by applause or criticism. Be moved by what you know to be right. Because at the end of the day, your reputation is what people think you are, but your character, that's who you truly are. And the Stoic path is about becoming someone worth respecting, even if no one ever sees it. 12. Lie by principle, not emotion. Your emotions are powerful, but they are also fleeting. Anger flares and fades. Excitement surges and subsides. Fear creeps in, then dissolves. If you let these passing states rule your life, you'll constantly be tossed around, reacting instead of responding, regretting instead of reflecting. The Stoics believe that a truly wise person doesn't live at the mercy of their moods. They live by their principles. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Simple, clear, unshakable. This is a Stoic mindset. To use reason as your guide, not emotion. Because while emotions may be loud, principles are steady. They don't change with the weather or shift with circumstance. They are the internal compass that keeps you on course. That doesn't mean you suppress or deny your emotions. The Stoics weren't robots. They felt joy, sorrow, anger, and fear like anyone else. But they chose to observe those emotions instead of being ruled by them. They paused. They reflected. They asked, is this feeling guiding me toward virtue or away from it? And then they acted, not out of impulse, but out of clarity. When you live by principle, you become dangerous in the best way. Calm under pressure. Clear in chaos. Focus when others are distracted. People trust you, not because you're perfect, but because you're consistent. You know who you are, and you don't bend every time a feeling tries to pull you off track. So the next time your emotions try to hijack your decision-making, breathe. Return to your principles. Act not from the fire of the moment, but from the strength of your values. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. 13. Don't suffer imagined troubles. Most of our suffering doesn't come from reality. It comes from imagination. We play out worst-case scenarios, rehearse future disasters, and borrow pain from problems that haven't even happened. Seneca said it clearly. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Think about how much mental energy we waste worrying about things outside our control. What if this fails? What if they judge me? What if I lose everything? But notice, most of these fears are not rooted in the present moment. They're shadows cast by an anxious mind, not facts. And in giving them power, we drain our peace, our clarity, and our joy. The Stoics taught us to prepare for adversity, but not to live in it before it arrives. There's a difference between preparation and preoccupation. Preparation makes you stronger. Preoccupation weakens you. You can plan wisely for the future without poisoning the present. So how do you stop suffering imaginary troubles? You return to now. Right now, are you safe? Right now, do you have what you need? Right now. Can you take one clear step forward? The present is almost always manageable. It's the imagined future that feels unbearable. Living wisely means recognizing when your mind is building storms out of shadows. And when that happens, you pause, breathe, and come back. You remind yourself, this is not happening. It's only a thought. And like all thoughts, it can pass. Train your mind to live in reality, not rehearsal. Because the future isn't promised and the past is already gone. But now is yours. And you don't need to suffer what doesn't exist. 14. Discomfort is a teacher. In a world obsessed with comfort, the Stoics remind us, growth doesn't happen in ease. It happens in resistance. Pain, struggle, discomfort, these aren't punishments. They're signals. Lessons, opportunities in disguise. Epictetus, who lived most of his life as a slave, said, difficulties are things that show a person what they are. In other words, your discomfort is not here to break you. It's here to reveal you. Every moment of tension, frustration, or pain is a mirror. It reflects your habits, your fears, your strength, and most importantly, your potential. Most people run from discomfort. They numb it, avoid it, or distract themselves from it. But the Stoic chooses a different path. The Stoic leans in, because within every challenge lies a choice: resist and suffer, or accept and grow. Think of the body. To grow stronger, it must be challenged. Muscles tear to rebuild. Endurance stretches by pushing limits. The same principle applies to your mind and your character. The moments that test your patience teach you control. The times you fall teach you humility. The pain of loss teaches you perspective. None of it is wasted unless you choose to ignore it. So when life gets uncomfortable, pause and ask, what is this trying to teach me? Instead of why me, ask what now? Discomfort isn't the enemy. It's a mentor dressed in difficulty. And those who welcome its lessons emerge not just tougher, but wiser. The Stoic path is not the easy path. It's the enduring one. It's the path of those who choose discipline over distraction, purpose over pleasure, growth over ease. Because they know the sharper the blade, the harder the grind. And discomfort, when embraced, becomes a fire that forges resilience. 15. Death puts life into focus. To the Stoics, death was not something to fear. It was something to remember, not to dwell in sadness, but to awaken in clarity. Memento mori, remember you must die, was not a morbid warning. It was a powerful invitation to live deeply, urgently, and purposefully. Why? Because nothing sharpens a mind like the reality of an ending. When you understand that your time is limited, distractions lose their grip, petty arguments fade, pride softens, and suddenly, what truly matters comes into view. You begin to ask, am I living fully? Am I wasting time on things that don't matter? Am I honoring the people and passions that bring me alive? Seneca said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." The Stoic doesn't deny death. They use it as a compass, as a motivator, as a lens through which to view each day as a gift, not a guarantee. And here's the paradox. When you make peace with death, you actually begin to live. You stop postponing your dreams. You stop holding back love. You say what needs to be said. You create, forgive, try, and begin, because the clock is ticking. And instead of fearing that truth, you use it as fuel. So pause and ask yourself, if today were your last, would you be proud of how you lived it? That question, asked daily, reshapes your entire life. The Stoic walks with death not as a shadow, but as a silent teacher. A reminder that life is not measured in years, but in presence, in courage, and in how fiercely we choose to live while we can. The Stoics didn't promise a perfect life. They didn't preach avoidance of pain or constant happiness. What they offered was something far more valuable: the strength to face life with unshakable clarity and inner peace. They taught us that we can't stop storms from coming, but we can learn to stand still within them, that we are not our emotions, but the ones who observe, understand, and choose how to act. That true power doesn't lie in controlling the world, but in mastering the self. And perhaps most importantly, they reminded us that life is short, not to scare us, but to wake us up. So take these 15 Stoic lessons and let them echo in your daily decisions, in how you think, how you love, how you lead, and how you grow. Use them not just as knowledge, but as tools to sharpen your focus, deepen your presence, and elevate your way of being. Because in the end, it's not about being unaffected. It's about being unmoved by what doesn't matter and fiercely aligned with what does. Think sharper, live smarter, and as the Stoics would say, live each day as if it were your last, but with the courage to keep building a life you're proud of.